everyone. It's Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. I hope you are all doing well as can be, I guess, given some of the news that has been coming to us and to Bengals Nation in just 2 short days of practice. Things have changed quite a bit for the Cincinnati Bengals and their outlook for the 2019 season. I feel bad. I feel when I do these, I feel like I'm bringing a lot of bad news, and I don't like to feel that way, but it is what it is. We got to report the news, and there are obviously other things going on with the team in a positive light outside of the AJ Green news, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the news with AJ Green is definitely dominating the headlines. I'll be here for a few minutes if you want to leave some questions or comments in this Facebook chat. Please do so. As I mentioned before, Cincy Jungle's official podcast is the Orange and Black Insider, and we've got the program is on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on Spotify, basically anywhere you get your podcasts, or if you like the videos, it's on YouTube. So if you, for some reason, were unable to join us live on this Facebook thread, you can get it after the fact on our podcast platforms. But let's get to it. AJ Green, yesterday I took the airwaves, and at the time it sounded like the Bengals kind of dodged a bullet. There was still some unknown elements to the injury, and as news broke today, the team did an additional MRI on AJ Green's ankle, and the reports, I'm already seeing questions here. The reports say that there is ligament damage, and as of now, it looks like a 6 to 8 week injury for AJ Green. He's getting a second opinion, and I think that's a wise choice, not only to, I say this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but not only to get an opinion outside of maybe the Bengals medical staff, but also, think about it for yourself, your own health, right? If you're diagnosed with something, whether it's an injury, an illness, what have you, it's often a good idea to get a second opinion. Obviously they're trying to avoid surgery and all of that. Yesterday, I guess I kind of jumped the gun a little bit based on some of the reports and everything. And I said, I don't see this as being a serious thing. I think it was more of a roll of the ankle, the sprain, that sort of thing. Obviously that has changed. Really adding, it sounds like a few weeks to the timetable, but I don't want to sit here and make, black and white statements here about this injury, because this is a fluid situation. We know that this training staff and medical staff has not always been forthright, or it seems as if the diagnosing and treatment of injuries has not always been up to snuff, and we've seen things extend. So we can sit here, the optimistic side of me says, hey, 6 to 8 weeks, that's basically week 1. If he misses the first week, that stinks. That's a tough game against Seattle. But, if he's going to still play 14 to 15 games, I think that's okay. You're gonna be without a star player here and there. You also look at it and you say, this isn't a rookie trying to get up to speed to the NFL. This is a guy who's been in the league for a long time. So yeah, there's a new system being implemented, but I don't really worry as much on the learning curve part, just because he's a veteran. He's been playing with Andy Dalton for his entire career, the guy who's going to be quarterback this year. So yes, new system. Yeah, ideally you'd want him to be in there and kind of working on some stuff, but I don't necessarily think that is I don't think that that's the big problem. The issue for me is, how long is this going to linger? Is it going to be if you remember, when Green had the toe issue last year, surgery was kind of an option, and they were mulling it over. He was trying to rest it and treat it and do all of that without doing surgery, because that would have cost him the season. Ultimately, he needed it because of these torn ligaments in his toe. And now we're in sort of a similar situation, it sounds like, with partially torn or, whatever ligaments in the ankle. And so I worry about, okay, if he's off his feet for, 5-6 weeks, the conditioning stuff, the playbook stuff, to me, it's AJ Green. I don't worry about that. If it was, probably about 95% of the other wide receivers in the league, I would worry about it. I don't worry about that with him. What I worry about is the element of how long is this going to nag? Is this going to be something that continues to keep him, it's going to flare up in the middle of the season? Maybe the Bengals surprise some folks and kind of get in the playoff hunt a little bit in the middle, late season, and Green's back in the lineup, and then he has to be pulled for another week or two. And then all of a sudden surgery has to happen because this is something that's nagging and it's not getting better. That's what I'm worried about. We don't know many details on that right now. If you're on Twitter, there are some prominent sports medicine doctors that are out there kind of giving their opinions. David Chow is one that most people follow, and he's giving out some good opinions on that. But, I don't – it's hard to speculate exactly what's going to happen. Optimistically, you would you'd look at this and you would say, okay, he's going to be back by the beginning of the season. It'll be okay. Maybe the Bengals experience a couple of growing pains in the weeks so that he's out. The Bengals do have other weapons despite some of the national media opinions out there. I mean, they're going to be run heavy. So Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard and company are going to get a lot of touches. You've got Tyler Boyd, who just signed a contract extension. You've got Tyler Eifert. By the way, we'll talk more about him in a minute. Back. Drew Sample was impressing. So there are other options in this offense. Obviously, none of them are as dynamic as A.J. Green. But, if this is something that they need to skate by a game or two, that's okay. If this is something that and really we won't know until September, October. If this is something that's going to linger throughout the season, I don't know. I don't want to belabor this point and talk primarily. I mean, we kind of have to, but I don't want to spend most of the time talking about a negative aspect with A.J. Green. I'm going to say this, though, okay? The other elements here are the contract issue with A.J. Green. Tyler Boyd just signed a deal. There was talk that A.J. Green was going to be next. Obviously, this throws a wrench in the works, and nobody really wants to say it. I don't even want to say it, but we may be looking at, unfortunately, a little bit of a breakdown of what was and could have been even a more excellent career. I don't say that. I say that very hesitantly, but you look at the last couple of years. 2016 ends up on IR. 2017 he's healthy. 2018 ends up on IR. First practice back, gets hurt. Now, these are freak things that are happening to him. They're not, conditioning issues or anything like that, but freak things are freak things, right? I mean, that's what's been going on with Tyler Eifert for years, and he has the injury-prone label. I don't want to put that on A.J. Green necessarily, but you look at these last few years, it's getting hard to differentiate his situation from some other players that have had some injury issues. But hopefully this will all play out well. I think A.J. Green has done wonders for this team, and I think he deserves a contract. I think obviously this whole situation muddies those waters for the team and for A.J. But for now, it seems as if it's depending on how you viewed it when the news first broke, it's a bit more severe than it looked at the end of Saturday, but it is also still not something that is season-ending, at least at this point, or even really significant where he would need to be, on the IR return call list or anything like that. I think he's going to get a second opinion. He's going to get it looked at, hopefully avoid surgery, and with rest and everything, it heals up. We'll see. Torn ligaments is never something that you want to have. And really a lot of times when you think of torn ligaments, you think it requires surgery. However, I have read, just kind of reading up on things with these sports medicine doctors and whatnot. I don't have a license to practice medicine or anything like that, but I have been reading that a lot of sprains actually are a form of tearing of ligaments and things of that nature. So especially in the ankles. So that may be something that is at play here, and it's just kind of a normal-ish sprain that just takes time to heal without surgery, and he'll be back. I'm Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday as we recap day 2 of training camp, both with the A.J. Green news and other news and notes, especially news and notes that from players that are affected by the absence of A.J. Green at practice and, who now needs to step up with him potentially missing time. I sent out a tweet for those of you who follow me on Twitter at CJAnthonyCUI. If you look back at the history of this team, now I kind of look at this team in kind of different chapters, right? So if you go back to 2011, that was kind of a source of a real large rebuild. They got rid of Chad Johnson, Carson Palmer was traded away, all of that. So they really rebuilt the team. That's when Green came in and Dalton and whatnot. I did a little bit of math in my head and just kind of, looked at everything. The Bengals have had 10 first-round picks since 2011. 9 years. They had the 1 year in 2012 where they had the 2 first-round picks because of the Palmer trade. So they had 10 first-round picks. 2 of them were in the top 10. Jonah Williams this last year was number 11, so right around the top 10. The 2 top 10 picks, John Ross and of course A.J. Green. If you viewed practice today, the day 2 of 2019 training camp, the Cincinnati Bengals had 3 of those 10 players, those 10 first-round picks, practicing. A couple of them are gone, and Kevin Zeitler and Cedric Ogbuehi, and many others are injured. And ironically, one of the 3 that was practicing was Tyler Eifert, a guy who has had substantial injury issues throughout his career. So my point in bringing that up is this is a team that has told us that they are not going to engage in outside free agency. They are not going to spend a ton of money on these outside free agents. They're going to build primarily through the draft. Well, when you build primarily through the draft, you have to have a higher success rate on your high round picks. And when they're experiencing injuries and things of that nature, it absolutely cripples your team. Injuries happen, I get it, but 7 of your 10 first-round picks are either gone because you didn't pay them or they didn't pan out, or they're injured. That's not good. So this is a team that needs to really reevaluate a lot of different facets of their team and move forward there. Continuing on that and the other news and notes, John Ross sat out day 2 once again with some hamstring tightness. It sounds very minor, but it's still concerning, especially with A.J. Green now out of the lineup. John Ross trying to come into a very big year for his career, and the team really needs him to step up, not just with the A.J. Green absence, but they just need him to be a player in this offense. So they need him to be a viable weapon. He seems to be re-energized, but he's not on the field. And it has been the issue with John Ross. Ironically, not really an issue in college. He did have a knee tear in college, but other than that, he was pretty reliable in terms of an injury standpoint. So that is something that it needs to be watched. Now, on the positive side, it looked like Josh Malone was making some plays at wide receiver. Tyler Eifert was making quite a few plays. So that was good to see. The defense is also kind of feeling better about itself. It sounds as if Preston Brown really likes what Lou Anarumo is doing with the defense. It sounds like Drake Kirkpatrick had a nice rebound day. By the way, he was the guy who rolled up on A.J. Green and hurt his ankle, but let's not get on him on that. It sounds like he had a good bounce back day in day 2, a pick 6 on a very nice play of Andy Dalton. So there are a little bit more on-field things to note as opposed to just the A.J. Green injury that dominated the headlines the first 2 days. Obviously, some of these guys, Cody Core is getting first-team reps. Like I said, Josh Malone is out there with early team reps. There are a lot of guys out there getting early team reps because John Ross and A.J. Green are not out there. So that's something to note. As I mentioned on yesterday, John Jerry is getting first-team reps at left guard. That's interesting. Trey Hopkins is getting first-team reps at center because, as I mentioned, with those draft picks that are not in the lineup for practice, Billy Price is also on the NFI list. Darquez Denard is on the NFI list. So, these are guys that aren't practicing. So with that, other guys are stepping in and going forward. I'm Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. You can get that podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Spotify, on Google Play, on Megaphone, on YouTube, and on CincyJungle.com. I'm going to try and get to some of these questions and comments. I've been rambling on a little bit here because there's a lot to get to, but there's some interesting insight with the comments here. Steve Seidenstick says AJ will be all right. Let's hope. David Joseph says if Mixon and Eifert show up, I think we can pull through. I think that is a good short-term strategy. There is not going to be a replacing of AJ Green if it's a long-term issue. I mean, that doesn't mean they can't win games. It doesn't mean the offense can't move the ball, but this offense is much different with AJ Green in the lineup. You notice that late last year. You notice it when he's out of the game. It's far less dynamic. Let's just be honest about that. But yes, this team does have other weapons they can rely on. Chance White, Eifert, and Green are human chandeliers. They need to be traded. Here's the thing. You can't – what's the trade value on those guys right now, especially now that Green's hurt? There's not a lot of trade value. So you're going to trade away these guys. By the way, you really value Tyler Eifert, so you brought him back again to see what he can bring to the offense. And he's on a one-year deal. You're not going to get much for these guys. So it doesn't really make much sense to trade. Obviously, the knee-jerk reaction, it's a natural knee-jerk reaction, is to say we should have traded them. The Bengals should have made a move for some of these guys. Okay, maybe a little bit ago, but I mean, there's not value there now, especially not for what those guys could bring to the offense. So I don't know. Devin Lewis says, I would rather hear this now than for us to hear it during the season. Yeah, but like I mentioned, the issue is this going to keep popping up in terms of the AJ Green injury? Is this going to continue to pop up in the season? We don't know. We don't know if he's going to need surgery, any of that stuff. So we'll see. I'm seeing a lot of this saddens my heart from Spencer Myers. That's funny. Not that your pain is funny, but I get you. The whole Bengals team is injury prone. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get out of here in just a minute here. That's kind of the overarching issue, right? I mean, there's a lot of talk of this medical staff. There's a lot of talk of the training staff, and the Bengals, and to Zach Taylor's credit, he brought in young, I guess, supposedly innovative-minded, a new training staff, strength and conditioning staff that was brought on board because that was a criticism of the previous regime and under Mike Brown. But, I mean, it's not really – things aren't really changing that much, unfortunately. And you can blame the field. That wasn't a Bengals choice. That was a league choice for the team to go practice there on day one. There's a lot of talk, including from Tyler Boyd, that the field was not up to snuff in terms of practice. That's fine. But, these are the things. And I saw a tweet from, I believe it was from Warren Sharp, who is he covers the NFL. I thought this was a very interesting thing and a spot-on assessment. He basically said something to the effect of, these teams they're worth billions. They're a big entity. Why would you not spend what you can on top-notch analytics, top-notch medical and training, top-notch coaches, all of that? I think the Bengals have done a better job of doing some of those modern practices. I think the hiring of Zach Taylor kind of showed that, but I think that this is still a team that will cut corners financially when they can, and it's obvious based on the size of their scouting staff, no indoor practice facility, all of these gripes that fans have had for a very long time. They've gone from doing the bare minimum to doing more, and that I think you have to credit Marvin Lewis largely for that. But they are still a team that does not do as much as most other teams in the league. And, if you are going to preach a championship, if you are going to preach these kinds of, we want to win, sometimes you have to make those investments in some of those ancillary, those peripheral type of operations and things, aspects of your team to make it a top-notch franchise. And I don't know that the Bengals are doing that in some of the areas. I'm not in the building, so I don't want to criticize specifically anybody, but when issues keep coming up, the same issues in terms of injuries, misdiagnoses, all of that kind of stuff, I don't. You gotta kind of say, well, maybe you want to address that issue. I'm gonna get out of here with this. I thought this was this is interesting from Jim Cropper III. I have torn ligaments in my foot / ankle and no surgery, but it hurt like hell, worse than a break even. That's probably what's going on. And when you looked at AJ Green yesterday, I kind of said, well, there was a lot of talk of him throwing stuff and being frustrated. I kind of thought that maybe he thought he knew it was a sprain, but nothing major, and he was just frustrated because it was his first practice back. He was on IR last year. He really wants to prove himself. I now am wondering if not only the pain that was associated with the injury, but also the fact that he realized it was maybe a little bit more than a simple sprain or a rolling of the ankle. So interesting stuff from Jim there. I mean, obviously everybody heals differently. Everybody has different things with their body. Everybody is saying AJ Green is a freak, a genetic freak, so maybe he'll heal faster. I don't know. But for now, it looks as if he'll be out the entirety of training camp and preseason, maybe even a game or two of the regular season. We will see. And then they'll probably have to kind of play it by ear and take it slow during the regular season and see what happens there. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Again, I'm Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider. Appreciate all your comments. Appreciate you tuning in. Keep it to CincyJungle.com for all the news, opinions, analysis, everything there. Keep an eye on our Facebook page. Myself and others will probably be putting out more of these videos. And check out our podcast if and when you get the chance. We appreciate it. Let's try and enjoy the rest of training camp if we can. Hopefully there's no more dominant news of injuries to important players. But we will see. There's a lot more to happen and transpire over the course of the summer and the preseason. I'll see you.